I wanted to make this supplementary video just to kind of further explain for Chapter 2 this notion of free trade. And this idea, let me, I guess, just first start out again with the key principles we have behind this, and then we'll kind of go from there. Sorry, I'm just going to adjust this here. Sorry, I should probably do the setting changes beforehand. The idea would be that, again, the key idea is that free trade benefits all. Right, that's from Chapter 2. And when we say that free trade benefits all, what we mean graphically is that two countries, country 1 and country 2, can each have a production possibilities frontier, but that within that frontier, that the countries can each respectively, and this is key what I'm about to say here to understanding this, is that each country can consume outside of its production frontier. That each country can consume outside of its production frontier. So that's possible. You cannot produce outside of the production frontier, right? That's an impossible point to be outside of the frontier. But a country can consume outside of the frontier. And they can consume outside of the frontier because of free trade. So that's what we mean by free trade benefits all. It means that the entire country can consume outside of the frontier. Now, what we had said after this general statement, we said that basically specialization is essentially a good thing. And what we mean by specialization is that countries should produce where they face the lowest opportunity costs, or essentially where they have the comparative advantage. How we can produce, or how we can understand that occurring, let me just kind of set up a kind of a brief example about how that would exist. Let's make a different kind of assumption here. Let's presume that we have two linear production possibility frontiers. Again, for country number 1 and country number 2. And let's say that these countries are producing xylophones and yo-yos. I don't know, I'm just trying to pick goods that are X's and Y's. So we have two countries, two products, and I have linear production possibility frontiers. The only reason why I'm doing that is so that the slope, which is the opportunity cost, so that the slope is constant. It makes life a little bit easier here. But let's say that for country number 1 and for country number 2, for quantities of X and Y, 0, 25, 50, 75, and 100, sorry, 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, just making up some numbers here. And that for country 2, let's say that it's 0, 100, 200, 300, 400, and then let's say that it is 0, 100, 200, 300, 400. Make my life easy. So these are now the points on each of their production frontiers. So all I've done now is kind of just deduced possible points on each of these frontiers. That there's basically a point on the frontier for country number 1 that's at 25 units of good X and 30 units of good Y. So now, since these are linear production possibility frontiers, the first step is to say, okay, what is the opportunity cost or the trade-off for each country? For country number 1, the trade-off looks to be 25x for 10y. Every time we move by 25x, every time I move by 25x, I move by 10y. Which I can reduce down to 2.5x to 1y. Or, seen the other way, that we could have 1x and then divided by 0.4y. Now the reason why I do this is because this now clearly shows what the opportunity cost is for each good. That one yo-yo has an opportunity cost of 2.5x. And that one xylophone has a trade-off of 0.4y. It's restating the exact same thing. So this is now the slope, seen from either perspective, of country number 1's production possibilities frontier. Now what about for country number 2? Here it looks like the trade-off is 100x for 100y. Which is really easy because it's 1x to 1y, 1y to 1x. So then here's the question. Who makes each good the cheapest? Who makes y the cheapest? Who has the lowest opportunity cost for making y? That would be country number 2. To make 1y costs country number 2 only 1x. Whereas to make 1y would have cost 2.5x for country number 1. So country number 2 has the comparative advantage in making y. Now here's the second question. Who has the comparative advantage in making x? 1x costs 1y. 1x costs 0.4y. Country number 1 has the comparative advantage in x. And so then what happens, to go back to this specialization idea, is that country number 1 is going to focus on just making x, country number 2 is going to focus on just making y, so they're initially going to start at points right here. They're going to only make the good that they're good at making. And then they're going to trade for the other good. And in the end, when they get that mutually agreeable trade, we're going to end up at a consumption point outside of those frontiers. I hope this brief video helps explain probably one of the more difficult topics in part 1 of this course and for this chapter. But let me know if you have any questions.